Can call your attention now to the front. And if you will pull out of your packet the first presentation packet, the first stapled set of pages, the book is entitled Engaging the Hearts and Minds of All Your Employees by Lee J. Colan. By the way, Lee has been at our event. He is a local author, and this is a published book by McGraw-Hill. And giving our synopsis presentation of this book is Lynn O'Neill. Let's welcome Lynn O'Neill.
Let me get all turned on here. There we go. Well, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Engaging the Hearts and Minds of Your Employees by Lee Colan. It's his 8th book, and it's a quest for the answer to today's most pressing business challenge, and that is, how can we achieve a significant and sustainable competitive advantage? His solution to this dilemma is a pragmatic modification in the way that we work with people. And I'd like to give you some examples of that, so I'll start with the quotes, as Randy often does. If you look, it's on page 5 of your handout. Just count over, and kind of just below the halfway point, there's a quote that says, "This may sound like something you've heard before, perhaps many times, and whether or not it is, consider the Gallup organization's estimate that 74% of employees are either indifferent to their work or actively disengaged." 74%. If you look at the next page, you will find a quote from Peter Drucker. And it starts out saying, the late Peter Drucker advised leaders to accept the fact that we have to treat almost everybody as a volunteer, because we pretty much accept that we have to engage volunteers. And a couple of quotes down from that, how often have you heard someone say, "I can't believe they pay me to do this"? That's what engaged people say as they deliver passionate performance. And that is the subtitle of this book, by the way. And why do they say this? Because their work actually feels like play. The next quote from there says that Gallup found that actively disengaged employees miss an average of 3.5 days per year more than other workers, or 86.5 million total days each year in absenteeism. Also noted is the fact that our world of work is largely influenced by our direct leader. We work for people, not companies, and employees generally leave people, not companies. And it's also noted that most people initially begin their jobs as engaged employees. And as a leader, the challenge is that an employee departure is only the most visible and final phase of disengagement. Disengagement is, in fact, a silent killer. The landmark Gallup study estimated that the annual cost of disengaged employees was $300 billion, and that's billion with a B. If you turn to the very last page of your handout, there is a quote from Andrew Carnegie that says, and I love this, and I've heard this before, and perhaps you have, and every time I hear it, it really makes me stop and think. He said, "The average person puts only 25% of his energy and ability into his work. The world takes off its hat to those who put in 50%, who put in more than 50% of their capacity, and it stands on its head for those few and far between souls who devote 100%. And then perhaps my most favorite quote of the entire book, it is not the author's, but I'm so glad he included it. It says, "If you put fences around people, you get sheep." Yeah, I know. It stops you short. That's attributed, by the way, to William McKnight, who's a former CEO of 3M. And then the final quote that I'd like to have you read along with me is next to the last one on that page. It says, "To date, there are no documented studies of employees ever feeling overappreciated." I can see you agree. Well, that's good. Okay. Now, if you go back to the front part of your handout, I'd like to note that Colan emphasizes just about everything in our world has changed except people's human needs, and he categorizes our human needs as either intellectual or emotional. There's a little table there for you that shows that in his designation, intellectual covers the need for achievement, autonomy, and mastery, and that in the emotional needs, He cites purpose, intimacy, and appreciation. He goes on to say that engaged minds build employee performance and engaged hearts ignite employees' passion. And somewhere in the book, I don't believe you have this in your handout, but let me just comment. He talks about the fact that performance without passion tends to falter during tough times. Certainly resonates with all of us now. Or in the face of challenges that require sacrifice, significant extra effort, or unusually creative solutions. Conversely, passion without performance results in watered-down and unfocused efforts. When you look at that chart, one thing to remember is that in Colan's theory, and I certainly believe that he's on the right track, that's an editorial side note, he says that on either side of that table that all those needs to be satisfied. So when we look at satisfying employee needs, he says we need to satisfy all six. Now this book is a rapid read, and I believe that readers will appreciate the pulse points. Those are sidebars that are scattered throughout the book. He has a fulfilling the needs section at the end of each chapter, and that actually details some pragmatic steps to work that will help us work through the achievement for our employees. And then at the end of the book, there's a performance leadership profile assessment. And in this book, he introduces a new term, and I really like this one. It's called ROIT, and that stands for Return on Invested Time, a new financial term for us. In the beginning of the book, pages 2 and 3 to be specific, Colan describes 3 varieties of employees, and you can read this along with me if you like. He talks about engaged employees, and he says they love what they're doing, and they look forward to coming to work. They're passionate about what they do, feel that they are an important part of the big picture, and that their energy and innovation make their companies not only successful, but competitive as well. His second category is disengaged employees. He says they are punching the clock, but if you look into their eyes, you'll find their hearts and minds are elsewhere. They're at work most of the time, but they left their energy and their passion at home. The third category he addresses are actively disengaged employees. These employees, he says, are not only just putting in their time and feeling unhappy about being there, but they're also spreading the gloom as they demonstrate how much they're unhappy with their boss, co-workers, or the company in general. While their engaged counterparts are working passionately, the actively disengaged are feverishly sabotaging every positive accomplishment. I'll pause here to let that sink in just a bit. Now, the book, Engaging the Hearts and Minds of All Your Employees, provides practical strategies to ignite passionate performance in your team and shares engaging stories about companies that have done this. A lot of these names are going to sound familiar to you. Try Texas Instruments, NASA, The Container Store, TD Industries, Crosstex Energy Services. And he also spends a bit of time talking about Google, and he says that their passionate performance is what keeps their employees searching for the perfect search engine. And I was pleased to note that he described what a perfect search engine will do in Google terminology, and that is one that would understand exactly what we mean and give back exactly what we want. Sounds good to me.